Hi guys, it's Beth and welcome back to my channel. Today I get to share with you the October 2020 Flavor of the Month card kit, and it's called Christmas is Covered. For my first card, I'm going to be using collection number 1, which is called Classic Cardinals, and I'm also going to be using the SFL Sketch Challenge number 9. That is on the sketch sheet you can download from the download section on the Scrappin' for Less website. I'm using some of the red cardstock that came in this kit for my card base, and I'm just making a basic A2 size card. I take my card mat pattern and trim it down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then I'm using that gray pattern as the strip that's going to go across the middle of my card, and I just trim it down to a 1 1/8 inch strip, and then we'll put it on the card and trim it down as needed. I do also add a red matte strip behind that gray strip just so it helps the gray pop off of the card, and then also use some of the red cardstock with a scallop circle punch to mat my cute little birdhouse element there. So I'm going to be using the stamp set that came with this particular collection, and I'm using the Happy Holidays sentiment, and I was originally going to stamp it onto that gray piece with a stamp block and changed my mind. So I decided to go ahead and put the card together. And I'm just adding all of my layering pieces with some ATG tape. I like the way the red and the white pop together. It's so pretty. I was so excited for a Christmas kit this month. I'm ready for some more Christmas crafting for sure. The weather's getting cooler. Halloween's almost here, or will be here when this video comes out. But okay, so I'm just trying to figure out where I want to place my birdhouse element there so that I have room for my sentiment off to the side. So this time I used some art glitter glue added to the back of my birdhouse pattern, and then also on the back of the scallop circle. To help me stamp the Happy Holidays, I decided to pull out my Misty because I was going to stamp directly onto the card, and I wanted it to be nice and clear and crisp, and I didn't want to screw it up. And I'm just using some basic black ink to stamp that. And even though that strip is at an angle, I went ahead and did my sentiment straight, like horizontal. And then since I am using a darker card base, I am adding a piece of white paper on the inside of my card, and it is 4 inches by 5 1/4. So to finish the card off, I decide to use some of the off-white enamel dots that came with this collection, and I added 3. I used a few different sizes, and then I also pulled out my Nuvo glitter drops in the white blizzard and added it to the snow that's sitting at the top of the birdhouse, just for a little extra pizzazz. And then after looking at it, I realized I wanted to add a couple more enamel dots over by the sentiment just to give it a little bit more detail over there. So that's card number 1. For card number 2, I am using the Believe collection, which is collection number 4. And these rustic wood grain patterns are so up my alley. I love them. And I'm using a sketch again for this one. And it's another Scrapping for Less sketch. And it's just one of their Flavor of the Month card sketch. And the sketch actually calls for if you get the banana split level of this kit, it comes with a tag die, and the largest tag die is like a perfect size for this. So I'm using several different patterns from this collection for my card. And my card mat for this one is 4 by 5 1/4, and I used a craft card base. And then I did mat my white pattern here with the words. I did go ahead and mat it like with a real thin craft mat just to help it pop out a little bit more. And I'm using some craft cardstock for my tag. I am using one of the ephemera pieces that came with this collection, and I decided it needed a little bit more something since I was just using the craft cardstock. So I found a little scrap from one of the patterns I used and just turned it over to the back side, and it was the perfect size to go almost all the way across that tag, just to add kind of something to ground the circle on the tag and add some additional color. And I realized that with that Christmas word strip behind the tag, since it is like 2 layers, I really needed something to help level out my tag. So I'm just pulling in a few scraps of the craft cardstock and am adding that to the right hand side of the tag on the back. And then I'll just help it lay flat once it's glued down. I had pulled out some foam squares, but it was going to pop it up too much, and so the cardstock layers worked perfect here. So pulling out the stamp set from this collection, and I am using the Here Comes Santa Claus sentiment, and I'm going to stamp it on some more of the craft cardstock. And my ink pad is still struggling, even though I've re-inked it. I'm not sure if I didn't do it right or didn't add enough or whatever, but the Scrapping for Less stamps usually stamp like wonderfully the first time that you've ever used them, but my ink pad is dry, and so I always have to stamp multiple times to make sure I'm getting a nice crisp stamp because of my ink pad. So again, adding some strips of the craft paper behind the left side of my sentiment strip because it's going to be hanging off of that Christmas word strip again. So now that that's on, I realized that I wanted to add a little bit of glue to the very top of that tag, and then pull out the red enamel dots that came with this collection. So I decided to cover up the whole of the tag since I didn't thread anything through there, and then just used a handful of the enamel dots to embellish. For card number 3, I am using the Starry Night Wishes collection, which is collection number 2, and it's pretty blues and grays and whites. And the card sketch I'm using for this one is Card Sketch 004 from the sketch sheet. All of the sketches I use today are from the sketch sheet, and they will be linked in the coordinated blog post below. I'll leave the blog post link in the description box below. And also in the description box below, I will have the link to the next person in the hop, just in case if you came over from my blog, or if you came directly to the video instead of through the blog post, you can check out the link in the description box for the next person in the hop to see more inspiration and projects using this month's fun kit. And you can always go back to the Scrapping for Less blog after you've checked out some of the other videos and register for the drawing. I will put the Scrapping for Less blog link in the description box as well. So for this card, the card sketch actually says it's for a card base that's 4 by 6 inches. I went ahead and made mine a standard A2, so I did have to finagle the measurements a little bit to make it fit my A2 size card. So the Christmas tree strip ended up being 4 1/4 inches wide by about 4 inches long. And then the kind of the starburst strip was 4 1/4 inches wide by 1 3/4 inches. And that covered the whole front of the card base, except for where I used the tag topper angle punch, which is kind of what the sketch called for. Are they actually called? It looks like they may have some triangle pieces up there, but I just went ahead and used the angle chomper to add that same thing without having to add extra pieces. And then I'm covering the seam where my 2 patterns meet with just a strip of that same navy cardstock that I'm using for my card base. And then I'm pulling out the snowman image that I stamped at the beginning of this particular card process, and I'm just doing some basic coloring of his scarf and hat with a dark blue from my marker set. And I did just a little bit of shading, not a whole lot. The majority of the shading that I did was with this cool gray. It's like the lightest cool gray in my marker set. And actually I did the second lightest cool gray and then the lightest cool gray and kind of blended those together for the snowman's body. And then I did the rim of his hat too, and then realized that I was going to cover it up later with something else. And then I added just a little bit of orange to his nose, and then the stars I went with kind of a goldish yellow. And that's really all I'm doing to that particular image. I used a circle die to cut him out and to create I used a stitch circle die to create the mat. And then I punched my Peace on Earth sentiment. That was a circle punch, and then I did mat that one in some of the navy cardstock as well. And again, using some scraps of the navy cardstock to help even out my Peace on Earth sentiment. And then I am ready to place it down. And so now that all of my main pieces are down, I can work on embellishing. But first I'm going to add another piece of white paper on the inside of my card for a message so that you can actually see the message. So I'm pulling out the sequins that came with this collection, and I'm pulling out 3 of the silver stars. And I didn't realize until after I started gluing them down that I colored my stars in the image above gold, and here I'm using silver, but I think it works. It's okay. I just like the extra dazzle, I guess, that the silver stars offered. I just felt like the bottom part needed a little bit of something because I knew I was going to come in with my clear Wink of Stella to add some glitter to the stars. And I ended up going over the stars twice just to make sure that, because again, I think my Wink of Stella was getting a little bit dry, so I wanted to make sure there was plenty of glitter. And then I'm pulling out that white Blizzard Nouveau glitter drops again for the rim of the hat, the ball on the end of his hat, the ends of his scarf, and the cuff on his mittens. And then I also pull out my black glaze pen just to darken up and maybe add a little bit of dimension to the eyes and mouth on the snowman's face. So that's card number 3. Card number 4 is using Merry Special Delivery Collection number 3, and I love, love, love this collection. I am a huge fan of buffalo plaid and love the red and the black and the trees and the reindeer, and I love the tag stamps. I can't wait to play with the tag stamps some more soon. So I pull out a couple of patterns that I decide to use, and I don't know if I showed it or not, but I am also using a sketch for this one. And this is the last sketch that's included on the download sheet, and it's Mojo Monday sketch number 383. So I chose to go with the red and black buffalo plaid for my card mat, and I'm just using a plain white card base this time. And instead of adding another pattern for that strip that's going vertical behind the Christmas tree pattern, I decided just to go with some plain black cardstock so that the Christmas trees would pop. And then I'm trying to figure out which patterns I want to use for the strips that go down at the bottom. I didn't really want to cut into any other paper. I wanted to try and use some of the strips I had, so I was kind of playing with all the strips and seeing which side worked best, and finally found two that I liked. And I took my sentiment and used the smallest tag size in the tag die set from the banana split level, and die cut out my sentiment. Once I get my black strip down, I start to put the Christmas tree pattern down, and then realized that I wanted it to pop out a little bit. So I pulled in a scrap of white cardstock and went ahead and trimmed it down to be a small mat. And it's not a huge effect. Like wasn't sure how well the white would work, but it was perfect. It added just enough pop off of that black to make the Christmas tree image pop. So then I'm going to add fishtails to my strips here, and I can get those adhered down. Just trying to figure out the placement of everything. And then I realized that on that far left side, I was going to need something to help level out those strips from all of the layers that I've got going on towards the middle. So cardstock scraps to the rescue once again. So now that I'm satisfied, I can go ahead and use my art glitter glue to get those strips adhered down, and then decide to pull in some of the twine that came with the banana split level, and I'm going to use the red and white twine to add to my tag. And the twine is kind of thick, and the hole in this tag is kind of tiny, so I had to fuss a bit to fit the twine through the hole, but managed to finally get it, and just tied a simple little knot so that I would have the two strands of the twine sticking out at the top. And then I trim that up and can adhere my tag. And because I'd been using enamel dots or Nuvo drops on all my other cards, I decided to continue that trend and pulled out my vintage Nuvo drops in Blackboard to add into the upper right hand corner. And that finishes off my card number 4. Okay, so here are the 4 cards that I made today. Fun little Christmas kit. I hope you guys enjoyed my process and the inspiration, got some inspiration for using your kit if you are a subscriber. If you are not a subscriber to the Flavor of the Month card kit, I will have a link down in the description box below where you can go and get some more information about that. These kits do tend to sell out fast, so if you are interested, be sure to go check out that link right away. And then this is the card that I made for my sneak peek on this past Sunday. I will link that video in the description box below if you'd like to check that out. It's just a little like crossover gatefold card. So those are my cards. Thank you guys so much for stopping by today, and I hope you're all having a crafty day.